Welcome, everyone. We'll just give it another minute before we get started. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who joined today's RiSWP mentorship session. Welcome. My name is Superior Den and I lead operations for the SWAN Forum. We're very excited to start today's session. Just a little bit of background about the SWAN Forum. We are the leading global smart water hub. We bring together progressive utilities, solution providers, consultants, industry experts, regulators, academics together to discuss accelerating data-driven solutions for the water sector and wastewater sectors. Here's a selection of our members around the world who participate in these discussions and also work collaboratively on innovative solutions. Our flagship event is the SWAN Annual Conference. This happens once a year, and we're very excited that this year we'll be doing a virtual Smart Water Week from May 24th to 28th. We're expecting over 500 smart water professionals from around the world, over 30 countries represented. And if you visit our website, you'll be able to see the agenda for the main conference, the digital twin workshop, and roundtable sessions. So we hope you'll be able to attend. Just as an FYI, if you are a student and you register with your student email address, you'll be able to receive a pretty significant discount, and the full week will be £50. So we hope you will attend. We're also going to be doing some activities dedicated to young professionals. So if you have any questions, please leave those in the chat box. The RiSWP mentorship series has been happening since December 2020. We do have recordings from past RiSWP events, including a workshop that Riccardo participated in last July and a recent webinar on how to land a job in smart water. So you can visit all of those recordings on the RiSWP website. Also new on the RiSWP website and inspired by the recent webinar is a career resources portal. So you can find different links to resources about how to find a job during these times, and interviewing skills and other additional resources. And we hope you'll be able to visit that and take a few things into your toolbox, but also feel free to share with us what are some things that have worked for you. And with that, I will transition this over to Rudy, who has been leading the mentorship project through the Rising Smart Water Professionals group.
Thanks, Sapir, and welcome everybody. My name is Rudy Buerta. I'm part of the leadership team of RiSWP, so that's Rising Smart Water Professionals. We are sort of the young professionals team of the SWAN Forum, and we've created this mentorship program, as you may have heard in our past episodes, with Tim Ferriss's Tribe of Mentors as inspiration. This is our debut mentorship program, and we're aiming to interview smart water professionals on a monthly basis to really learn life and career advice from them. And today we are featuring Riccardo Taormina. Riccardo joined TU Delft's Department of Water Management in July 2019 as an assistant professor in urban water infrastructure. He has a BSc and an MSc in environmental engineering from Politecnico di Torino in Italy, and a PhD in civil engineering from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. And prior to joining TU Delft, he worked as a postdoc at the iTrust Research Center of Singapore University of Technology and Design. His research activities involve the use of data, computational modeling, and machine learning, or AI, for solving water problems. And this is also reflected in his teaching commitments. He also works in the field of cybersecurity of water infrastructure, which was the main topic of his postdoctoral experience. Furthermore, he co-directs ADRO Lab, TU Delft's lab for AI research in sustainable water management. He's from Italy and loves his country, but considers himself a citizen of the world. He says he's grateful that his academic career led him to Hong Kong, Australia, Singapore, and now the Netherlands. Apart from traveling, he loves spending time with his family back in Italy, going for a run or doing yoga and cooking. He also enjoyed participating in Kaggle competitions, which he recommends to all wannabe data scientists. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Assistant Professor Riccardo Taormina to our interview today.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here. Thanks for the introduction, Rudy. It was quite accurate.
Great. Just before we jump into the interview, I'd just like to invite our participants to post any questions in the chat box. This is an interactive session, and so as we receive your questions, we'll be throwing them in the mix. So feel free to, when we call out your question, unmute, put your camera on if you'd like to, and ask your own question. If you don't want to ask your question, no problem. Emma is assisting me. She's going to read out your question. But please do interact. This is your opportunity to learn from somebody in academia, somebody that's traveled the world and has exceptional knowledge in smart water. So we're going to start with a little icebreaker, just to sort of get to know you a little bit better, Riccardo. So these questions are quick answers, and just the first thing that comes to mind, if you can mention that as we go through them. So the first one is, complete the sentence, smart water is.
Yeah, for me, is I would say cyber physical systems. So I work a lot with cyber security. So this concept that, when you talk about smart water, you talk about cyber physical system is very important. So this integration of physical process with automation, with computation, with networking. So maybe I'm biased because I come from a cybersecurity also perspective, but I think that's a very important topic that we need to know. So cyber physical systems, yeah.
Cyber physical systems, that sounds interesting. I'd like to hear a bit more about that just now. What do people often get wrong about you?
Yeah, as I said before, I work with cybersecurity, so everybody thinks that I am a hacker. So when I joined TU Delft, everybody was, coming to me thinking that, I could solve their security problems, but actually, it's not the case yet. I think I have an above average knowledge of cybersecurity for being someone that works in the water sector, but I'm not an hacker. I might be in the future, maybe depends on my future projects where they're gonna bring me, but it takes a lot of effort to become a hacker. It's very interesting, but I'm not yet. So I'm not gonna hack into anybody's computer today, don't worry.
And what is one of your favorite books?
Okay, I can say two, maybe one fiction, one non-fiction. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I really like science fiction. I think as many people that like artificial intelligence, I would say, or are engineers. And maybe my favorite one is Neuromancer by William Gibson. I think it was kind of important for me because it talks about cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. So I think I found it very inspirational when I read it like maybe 15 years ago. So a very interesting book. And recently I finished another book, which is a nonfiction. It's called Deep Work by Cal Newport. And it's a book written by this professor actually in the US of computer science. And it's a very interesting book because it talks about deep work, which is this idea that if you want to solve complex tasks, if you want to learn difficult things, we need to really have a strategy for concentrating and for prioritizing. So this is helping me a lot with my current career, I would say, because it's really insightful.
Fantastic, thank you. And what is a must-have part of your typical workday?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I usually look what I have to do. I kind of like do a review of the things that I managed to do. So I was supposed to do this task and I see which one I've done and which one I need to maybe move to another day, of course. So I find like a suitable placement in my week or future week. And also at the end of the day, I see what I'm expected to do tomorrow, because it's always nice to sort of have an overview. And also at the end of the week, of every week, I kind of see what's the week ahead. So I spend like 10, 15 minutes sort of planning which is quite kind of like I go to sleep better if I sort of like write down what I've done, what I have to do, and it's good.
That sounds great. So like being grateful for what you've done and seeing towards the future, but you sound very organized. And what is on your nightstand?
So that's a funny question because I think I bought one only a week ago, and it was from IKEA. It was a bit difficult to assemble it, but I managed. Yeah, so there is not much in it. I have a Kindle and my headphones, you know. So sometimes if I go to bed too early, I want to listen to something like an audiobook, then I turn that on. Yeah, there is not much more. There should be a light soon, I guess. We'll see.
Great. And what is a snapshot of an ordinary moment in your life that brings you true joy?
Oh, yeah. Well, we say before in the introduction that I like to spend time with my family. And now in these times of pandemic, it's impossible. So we have this group chat with my family. And yeah, usually when I finish my day before going to sleep, I always have a look, and there is always like a picture or a video or my niece or my nephew. And, you know, so regardless of the day I had, that's always like cheers me up, and it's always nice. So that's certainly something that is very good to do every day. Yeah.
It's really special to have your family close.
Yeah.
And do you have a latest curiosity?
Yeah, maybe one. I learned today that my department of water management in TU Delft is looking for a new assistant professor. So in water treatment, and then I think this is a good venue. So if you guys know, you know, someone that might be interested, then apply. So yes, I can. That's a curiosity because I really didn't know, and it makes me happy. It's always nice when you know that you're gonna get a new colleague soon, right? It's very exciting.
Great, that's a lot of fun. Are you working remotely or in person at the university?
Okay, I've been working remotely since, wow, over a year. Maybe I went maybe 5 times in the university, but now in the Netherlands, things are going to change soon. I think we are allowed to have also in class lectures once a week. So I guess maybe in the future, I will go maybe once a week in the near future. So maybe May to the office. Yeah. But now, yeah, I'm home. This is not my real office. I wish. No, I'm concealing my home.
That's exciting that you'll be able to meet your new colleague and to see your students in person. I think we're all hoping that'll happen soon for everyone. So that was the icebreaker. Thank you for your very interesting and thoughtful answers. I'm going to move now on to the longer questions, and these are really just sort of guiding suggestions on telling us more about your career and your experiences so that we can learn from it. So feel free to elaborate in whichever direction you feel, and then we'll ask some audience questions in between my questions. So the first one is, are there any significant people or events that helped you to get where you are now in your career as a smart water professional?
Yeah, of course, lots of people, lots of events. One thing that is kind of recurring in my career is randomness. So a lot of things happen just randomly. And if you end up interacting with a lot of people in different settings, then from this random event, something positive is gonna happen. So for instance, I wasn't always working with the water infrastructure. My PhD is in hydrology. So it's like a sister sort of like discipline, but it's not the same thing, right? And I was working in hydrology and doing already maybe data science related to hydrology. And then on a plane, my former supervisor from Australia, what became my supervisor in Singapore, met because they were going together to a conference. And just by talking, you know, so my name sort of like was mentioned. So I got contacted by who became my supervisor in Singapore. And the project that he proposed me was about, indeed, cybersecurity of water distribution systems. So I had to move from hydrology to something. I mean, of course, I accepted because I found it really interesting, but it was really random that I got to know about this position. And so that's one thing. And I'm saying that it's recurring because it really happened again and again. So I moved to the Netherlands in July, and before the pandemic, I wanted to learn Dutch, which is tough, but you go to this language meeting, exchange meeting. So I teach you Italian, you teach me, Dutch, or it's quite fun. And then I met there one student, also an Italian guy working for as a research assistant in another faculty. And we started talking about random stuff, but then actually he was working on graph theory and graph signal processing, which is a branch of signal processing. And I really wanted to move into that because, water networks are networks, right? So there is a lot of combination. And I had this project in my mind about applying these methods and graph AI to water networks. So I started talking to him, and then I talked to his supervisor. And then there was this call at TU Delft for establishing new AI labs. And I immediately sort of remembered that we had this connection. So I called again this professor working in this other faculty. And he actually told me that one of his PhD students just started working as a professor, as assistant professor in TU Delft on a very similar topic to what I wanted to do. And so together, I contacted this former PhD student, and now we have a lab together. So again, it's sort of like a random connection that then lead to something really concrete and really life-changing, because, I moved from hydrology to water distribution, so to smart water in the end, so the urban water cycle. And then again, my first big achievement, which is having this AI lab, came also because of a random connection initially made. So don't underestimate the power of random connection in your life. And of course, always try to interact with people who, it's fun to, and it's maybe also fruitful.
And I think you also took those random opportunities with both hands and sort of embraced them. I think a lot of us experience these opportunities, but you've really taken the opportunity to make it a success. So I think another important takeaway from what you've said. My next question is, what is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? This doesn't necessarily have to be money. It could be time or energy or anything else.
Yeah, again, in your introduction, you mentioned that I'm fond of Kaggle competition, and I used to do a lot of them before starting to work as an assistant professor because there is no time anymore. So Kaggle, for those who don't know, is, I think, the best platform for learning data science, AI. They have training material, they have data set, and also they have competitions. Actually, I think a few months ago, there was a huge competition about the water sector, where you actually can also get money by winning the competition, providing a data science, data-driven solution. So I think I discovered Kaggle when I was maybe at the beginning of my postdoc, maybe at the end of my PhD 4 or 5 years ago. And it was so good to see that, there is this huge community, right, of people working in data science that try to solve the same problem together, problem from very different disciplines. Okay, I did competitions in medical imaging, sport, real estate, so stuff that has nothing to do with water or little to do with water. But you learn a lot of different techniques and models and a way of implementing stuff that otherwise, if you would be just, in your field, you would never learn. So as an academic, I always saw implementation of AI for smart water, say, which are still limited, right? Because there is much more that you can see out there. So I think having this exposure for years with people that then end up working in, I don't know, the biggest company like Google, or those companies that do AI and just AI essentially. And so it was a very, very fruitful. I spent a lot of time and efforts. In my free time, I was mainly doing this Kaggle competition for a while. Trying to exploit at most my poor computer was dying for all the I had this for all the computational efforts it was going through. But I think I learned a lot. I would say I learned more how to do machine learning and AI in Kaggle than by reading 150 papers of AI application in the water sector. So that's something that I think it gave me an edge at some point, because I could also talk to the real world because those type of implementation are much more similar to what you find then in the industry, right? So when I feel I can teach my students now, not just the stuff that we do in the ivory tower of academia, which is maybe more like my research, but also giving them like hands-on skills that they can use, for their daily work once they start working maybe as data analyst in smart water or related fields.
Thanks. I want to throw in a different question here, just in response to what you've said. Do you think it's important to merge the industry and with the academic fields?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. Like, the thing is that I think now maybe it's going to be easier to merge the two with smart water, right? If you look at all the big technological companies, right, like Google, again, Facebook, you will find that the head of analytics, the head of AI is usually a professor, right? So this professor works there, as this professor works there. So I think now, once research and development, R&D and technology within a company becomes so important, then you need to move closer also to have strong ties with academia, because there's really that you can really see that the interconnection is getting stronger. And that's why I can say also, yes, now that I have this AI lab, for instance, we are always in talks with people from the industry, okay, like big corporation, consultancies. We have, master students working there. And it's hard maybe to find a collaboration between us, but there is, I would say, a strong, also on the industry side, there is a strong interest. So it's looking good from my point of view. And I think indeed that, that the more you work with technological, the more you try to work at the edge. So, not trying to use maybe all technologies, but try to invent new ones. That is makes much more sense to have a strong interaction between academia and the industry. So, and I have to say also that some of these companies that we're talking to, they're telling us that they're investing a lot in R&D, and they want to build sort of like a proper research team within their smart water companies. So it's our consultancy also working with smart water. So indeed, it looks like it's also, it's easy to make the transition. So if, for instance, a few years ago, I would have told someone that wanted to do a PhD, are you sure you want to do this career in academia? Because, that's what you're going to end up doing in the end. Now, I mean, you can also accept PhD students that say, you know what, I want to really become a good researcher. But then, I'm also considering the opportunity of moving into the industry, because now there is also, I think, more demand for people who are also more of an academic background. I don't know if this answers your question. Yes,
very well, and very good insight there for our young professionals that studying further and specializing is not only for academic reasons anymore. It's definitely more in demand in industry as well. So those are exciting prospects for those who have done masters and PhD to be players in both fields. I just want to encourage again the audience, if you have any questions, to pop them in the chat. We do welcome questions throughout the session. My next question is, what is the most important leadership lesson you've learned, and how has it proven invaluable?
Okay, yes, I think we talk a lot about the leading others, right? But there is also the concept of leading yourself. And I didn't know this concept before, but then I am doing now this personal development program, which is part of my tenure track at TU Delft. So actually the first lesson that it was more or less, it was a lesson, it was an interactive class with professionals and other colleagues, was indeed on leading yourself. So leading yourself means how can you get the most out of yourself? How can you learn how to be effective? How you can use your time wisely? How can you, sort of like motivate yourself and also keep yourself accountable? And I have to say that at the moment, that's what I needed the most, because I believe that once you become successful and once you really know how to solve your own problems for becoming successful, then it's going to be also good for leading others, because first of all, you can lead by example in a way, and also because you will be leading people that will also face the same problems that you maybe had. So you can really give them the suggestion, the advice that could be very valuable. So, and also this deep work book that I mentioned before was actually suggested during this meeting, during this class that we had on leading yourself. And I found it very interesting, to the point that I actually got the books also from my PhD students. I have a look at that. So I hope they also found it interesting, and as I did, because I think it's never too early to learn how to effectively lead yourself. So it takes time before you are in the position to lead others. Sometimes you lead others just because you organize a trip and you go, somewhere. That's already like leadership skills, or all the stuff that you guys are doing here for SWAN, right? That's also related to leadership and so on and so forth. But we don't have to underestimate how important it is to realize that we need to lead ourselves first. Okay, so I think that's now something that I'm finding very useful, because I also have more time to then think about leading others, because I am more effective myself with what I'm doing. I don't know if this makes sense.
Yes, it sounds great. And the audience question has just come in here. Which book are you talking about leading yourself?
Yeah, the book is still called Deep Work by Cole Newport. Deep Work. And of course, this idea of deep work is this idea of prioritizing, and maybe, and also find really the motivation, understanding the importance that, the hard skills that are needed in smart water, for instance, okay, they are hard skills. To learn those hard skills, you really need to concentrate, to work hard, and to find time for doing so. What I like the most about this book is because it could relate very well to me, because this was also a professor, and as an extremely successful professor, who is now like a star in his field, also because he wrote this book, who still managed to do all that he did by working 9 to 5 and having a family with 2 kids. So if he can do that, maybe there is hope for me as well. So for me, it was very easy to relate to this, but I think this approach is also suggested to people outside of academia. Anyone, especially I would say, who has a career that has to do a lot with numbers, with technology, can relate to that. So have a look at this book. I think, or similar books also as well. But this idea of deep work, of concentrating, finding time, saying no to any distractions, and then because it's just how it works better. So I was kind of drowning in my billions of activities, all these master students to supervise with very good projects, and then all this project proposal to make, papers to read. I was like, oh, I can't survive this. So now I think I really it's looking. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I hope it's not a train, but it's going better.
And again, fantastic.
Yeah, one thing that is never too early, okay? Never too early. I mean, I wish I had known this before. I think I not wasted a lot of time in my life, because I don't have any regrets and stuff, but I knew that for a long time I wasn't as effective as I could have been, because indeed, I was not able to lead myself. I was sort of like all my strengths sort of like in billions of little rivers without having like focus. And this is time that is not coming back. That's okay with me, but I can strongly suggest you to learn to do this before, because you're gonna benefit from it very, very much.
Fantastic. We'll definitely put that recommendation on our resources page. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Emma, who's got some audience questions for us next.
Yeah, so the chat's been pretty active. A lot of thanks around the book suggestions, and I think we'll have to take this advice and run with it and create a RiSWP book reading list for our community. So thanks for adding to that. One of the questions that came through in the chat, I'll read out, is, from your perspective, what are some of the biggest challenges in the shift from the traditional water chain into the smart water system?
The biggest challenges? Okay, again, I'm biased, I guess, because I do cybersecurity, but everybody now is approaching me for cybersecurity. That's the biggest challenge they see. Of course, you have to make an investment, right? You know, you have to buy equipment, you have to have a strategy and all this stuff. But then if you have to see, okay, with all the pros that, you know, smart water has, that's always justified, right? You know, that's why we are making this transition with the industrial control system first, and now with the industrial Internet of Things. You know, this is like unstoppable, right? There is no analog sort of fallback option. If you want to do sustainable water management, we need to, you know, have smart water. This is something that I'm not saying it. It's like people who know this field much better than I do say it for so long. So indeed, the biggest challenge is actually cybersecurity, I would say. Yeah, because it's you need to do this, okay, to achieve the sustainable development goals, to have sustainable water management, and all these great things. But then, indeed, once you do this, you can be hacked, and if you can be hacked, that's a problem. And then when you put in interconnection and, you know, cascading effects, then really there is a lot of things that can go on. So indeed, the biggest challenge is, I would say, is that there are other challenges. Of course, it's never easy to make these transitions. You can end up spending a lot of money for no reason. A lot of water utilities in the past have they have a lot of data, but they don't know what to do with it. So, you know, that's another thing, right? Another challenge would be, okay, we deploy this super cool Internet of Things, sensors everywhere, this and that, and then, okay, you don't have any analytics on top of it, or you don't know what to make with it, or you end up doing just like fancy presentations showing that, oh, we have this, we have that, but then, you know, what is the added value? So those are certainly challenges. But on top of that, I would say for the whole sector is this idea that, you know, I don't know, 5-10 years from now, you want to have water, even now, not just 5, I mean, you've seen in Florida recently, right? There was the 5th of February, 2021, you know, like they say that nothing could have happened for that hack because they had a lot of things in place. But again, you know, like 15,000 people, I think, served for the water utility could have been poisoned because of an hack. It's and that's just like the tip of an iceberg, I would say. So I'm not saying that all of you guys should turn into cybersecurity masters. That's not needed at all. I myself, I'm not that good. I just find it very interesting because it's very important. So that was a great question. Yeah, that's a huge challenge. So it's good to be risk aware. Okay, it's good to know that there are these called security controls that you can implement with standards. Okay, like industrial standards, or also guidelines that you can find, for instance, by, I think maybe also SWAN could have some guidelines for security. But, you know, I know for sure that the Water ISAC has, or the American Water Works Association, EPA could have some others, you know, lots of them out there. But if you manage to implement those security controls, then you know already that your system is really way more secure than the average. And then, you know, you can sleep better at night, I would say. So, you know, yeah. So you guys would be maybe in charge of the transition. Be aware that that could be a problem, okay? Like a huge problem.
Yeah. We have a few questions that have come in to me privately, but I'll space those out. Rudy, do we have time for one more question now before we move on? Okay, so then let me pass it over to Amin for you to ask the question that you posted in the chat. You can unmute yourself. Or I can ask it for you.
Hello.
Hey, go for it.
Hello, Dr. Taormina. I'm very happy that I have the possibility of asking a question from you. I would like to know, among all the projects that you have been involved in, which one was the most impressive one that by which you really felt the application of artificial intelligence model in solving water network problems?
Okay, thanks. I mean, nice to meet you. You work in Pavia, am I right? Do you work in Italy or?
Yes, I'm working in Pavia.
Okay,
Under supervision of Dr. Kyriako.
Oh yeah, grand. Okay. Say hello to him. Well, I really hope that my current project is the most important one. This always have to see. You have to always think. I don't always say this, but you want your current project to be the best that you ever did, and then you wish your future projects are the best that you will do. I think it's from a rock star. Say like asking you, do you like your current album? Yes, I do. Of course, it's the best I've ever done. Anyway, because I hope so. Now we are working at HydroLab with this idea of using graph neural networks for modeling water networks, essentially, and also flooding. And I think this is very promising because when we work, for instance, let's just talk about water distribution system or urban drainage system, right? So these are networks. And when you usually use traditional AI methods, this structure, this network structure, this prior information, which is very important, we cannot process it with traditional data-driven methods, right? So we sort of steamroll this structure. We don't want to see it. We just want to see Excel files, right? Time series, which are not that connected between each other. And now we believe that once you start using this graph neural network that can digest also the structural information, you should have better performances. You should have, like a much more generalizability. So you can maybe train a model here and you can reuse it there, okay? And also, you should also require less data because you're exploiting the best the data that is already contained in the infrastructure, in the grid, right, in the network of the infrastructure. So I believe this is extremely promising. We are soon, hopefully, we're going to publish the first paper about it. We also pitched the idea to people in the industry, and they believe actually it's nice to know that also in the water sector there is people that know about graph neural networks, which is this graph AI is sort of like it's quite new. It's one of the hottest topic in AI, but not so much in our field. But it's so I mean, yes, I really hope that the current project that I'm doing is the one that has it was going to be changed, it's going to change the industry. But yeah, it's very interesting. So I hope when my paper will be out that you can read it and you can let me know what you think about it. Okay.
Thanks, Prof. That sounds very interesting. I'm definitely going to look it up afterwards. I'm going to pop another question in before the next audience question. What advice would you give to a smart-driven, inspired, rising professional or graduate about to enter the smart water world? And is there any bad advice that they should ignore?
Yeah, okay. I will start from the bad advice that they should ignore. I mean, in industry, in academia, if you talk about, let's talk about analytics, advanced analytics, AI. Everybody talks about that now. So I would tell you guys to don't overuse buzzwords. Don't do that. I've seen people presenting like a linear regression model and say our AI is, and that's always the case, especially in the industry. I would say very basic stuff. 25 years old. Our AI is. I know maybe that can help you sell contracts and make you look cool, but deep inside, I wouldn't feel right with it. There is nothing wrong about linear regression. There is nothing wrong about statistical modeling. Actually, they work much better than AI in a lot of cases, right? But don't, also with the digital twins, I myself, when I write about digital twins, I'm always, am I really developing a digital twin? Is it really that? But now you see that anything is a digital twin, right? A computational model, EPANET, I don't know if you guys are familiar with EPANET. EPANET is a digital twin. Is it really? No, right? There's much more around it. So I would say bad advice, don't just put buzzword and just, name dropping whatever just because it makes you look cool. Or if you do, be really aware that there is something behind it, okay? That there is, be aware of the reality. I'm not telling you not to sell your products or not to sell your whatever, your expertise, but make sure you know the limitation of this, of the real things behind these buzzwords. So that's on the bad advice. On the good advice, I would say absolutely don't stop learning. So you finish your master, you're just at the beginning of your learning experience. You just have the basic tools to start working on something. Never stop learning. It's the most important thing by far. You never stop learning. And now more than ever, as soon as technology really starts changing a sector like our sector, there is nothing stopping it. Okay, so this means that you really need to be always updated. You really, you have to. I would say you should really set some time for yourself, either during the week or maybe a month during a year, where you do some training on something that you deem important that can help you in your current career, especially also with an outlook to the future. So also related to that, I would say, if you're given the choice, try to work for a company that really values continuous learning. Try to work for a company that say, 1 month you have, like, I don't know, 2 weeks paid every year, every 2 years for doing this, for being updated. Another things, and that's also related to Swan, I would say, it's very good to be connected in this way. It's fantastic. Also because a lot of these new things you can learn because you just read a newsletter coming from an association of people working in your sector, or maybe you participate to a conference. And you should do, especially if you're a student or if in the beginning of your career, or also, you should ask maybe your employer to let you participate to conferences, because that's where, people showcase a lot of interesting stuff that you can start looking into. You can always be updated and so on and so forth. So by far the best suggestion is to, keep working hard, of course, and keep learning all the time.
Very good advice. Thank you so much, Prof. I'll hand over to Emma for a few more audience questions.
Yeah, sure. So scrolling back up, we had a question from Vito. Vito, I don't know if you want to ask it yourself or if you want me to. If you would like to ask it, just unmute yourself. If not, give me the go and I can do it. Okay, so I'll ask it. The question is, can you share a quick overview of one of your favorite AI or machine learning applications in the water industry that you've had the opportunity to be involved with? You mentioned your example, but are there any others outside of what you've been working on?
They are not worth mentioning at all. My example is the best. Well, let me see. In smart water networks, there are something. It's better if I talk about something that I've been involved with, because I think that's more relevant, and also because I always try to do cool stuff. So I should think that what I do is cool stuff, especially when you work in collaboration with a lot of other researchers that you feel are very knowledgeable, capable, and so on and so forth. So what we really need, talk about AI, but we always have to think that if there is no data, there is no AI. Okay, mostly useless, right? Data-driven models. So I think the data is more important than the model itself. So we do struggle with data a lot. Nobody wants to share their data. It's horrible. The way that I want to engage so much with the public and the private sector is to get finally data that it's actually real rather than simulated, right? But when you don't have real data, you need to simulate it, right? So in the field of the water distribution system community, WDSA, CCWI, if you're in Europe, we have this sort of like routine competition called, battles. So there have been battles for the last 20, 30 years, which which we try to push the sector towards like an unresolved challenge, or and now they're becoming more and more data-driven, meaning that there are also data sets available that you can use for developing your own methods. So in 2017, I made a battle with people, with my colleagues around the world. That was about detecting the effect of cyber attacks on on a water distribution system. So we created a simulation model that could simulate this data, and then we made this available, and we had like 7 teams, if I remember correctly, from all over the world, a mixed industry and academia participate in developing data-driven machine learning models to solve this challenge. And that sort of like, you could see like a spike in publications, in contribution related to that. And now, more recently, this initiative was led by Cyprus, the Kaios Center in Cyprus, which is very good as well. So I strongly suggest you to also look into their work. And we did this battle for Batledim is called. So this battle for leak detection and identification, I would say. And this was supposed to be hosted in Beijing for the WDSA, joint WDSA CCWI, I think, conference. But anyway, we again created a data set for leak detection. So there is a lot of data out there, which is quite relevant and realistic, because that data is based on real data coming from Cyprus. So there is a nice model, there is a nice challenge, and you can use the data to develop your own, in this case, leak detection and identification methods. So we had at least, I think, more than 15, almost 20 teams participating in this other competition. So I'm gonna write maybe in the chat the website of these two competition, well, net, I guess, and Batledim. So just search for those in Google in the chat, and then you should find this data set. And with this data set, you can develop your own machine learning techniques. And I can say, especially for the Batledim, that we really had like a lot of different data-driven approaches involving deep learning, involving change detection, and many other things used also these days in the industry. They try indeed to develop these technologies, these methods to solve this problem. And we are hoping to have soon a special issue where most of these methods are actually described. So yes, I would say, I don't know if I answer your question, Vito, but I would say that any effort related to the generation of data, the availability of data, it's at least as important as the model themselves. And I think also recently there was, maybe I will add this link when this conversation is over. I think people, I guess I think in Denmark or in Norway, I think in Denmark, they shared a data set about urban drainage system. So they share like a real data set, if I'm correct, with sensor readings for a urban drainage system. So again, you can use the data to build your own models. So yeah, data over models, I would say, especially because I need data. So if you guys have data, give it to me.
We'll do a crowdsourcing for some data, but this has been very interesting. I've learned a lot about smart water in this conversation. So thanks for that question. My next question is a bit more about mentorship. Do you have a mentor? Have you had a mentor, and what role did they play in your life? Were they older or younger? Any other details you want to share with us?
Yeah, I had a few. I would say I'm quite, I don't know. It's not that I don't like having mentors, but I have a strong personality. So, I don't really seek for mentors. I seek for people that I really value. And I can learn from them. And yes, I think the most important so far has been my previous research advisor in Singapore, who was younger than me. I think I learned a lot from him. I learned how to handle, because I saw him building his research group, right? That was, I think, the second person that he hired. And so it was nice to see how to approach, this, the creation of a new group, and also, becoming a leader of your own team. And I think I appreciated a lot from him that he was always kind and smiling and always very empathetic, but always goal-driven and quite direct when needed. So I really like this balance that he had. Because he wanted to work to sort of because he was a nice person on one side, so a very good boss, if you will. And on the other side, you wanted also to make him proud because he had a goal, he had ambitions, and you wanted to participate into this shared effort. And also, I think I learned a lot from him because I was, everybody goes through difficult times in their lives. And when I went through mine for personal reason, he was really extremely supportive, and that I will always be grateful. So yeah, and also he taught me how to be more organized. I wasn't organized at all, and I could see that he was organized, and I kind of like, I like this fact of him that it was very different for me, and it still is. And but it's nice to see that actually, if you're organized, this ends up bringing results. So maybe there, when I was working as a postdoc in Singapore, I didn't make many efforts to be organized. But then when I moved to the Netherlands and I started doing what he was doing in Singapore, I thought, yeah, you know what, maybe I do remember how he was handling this stuff. So maybe I should put in place a similar approach. And that sort of helps. So it's nice when you have this mentorship that maybe you learn something and you don't really recognize it, but then you think about it a couple of years after when you are in a position which is similar, and then actually say, oh yes, that's why I was doing that. It makes sense. So indeed, so I would say yes. You always also treat me as a peer, which was also very important. So you can be a mentor also if you are a peer of someone else, if you really believe you are a peer. Of course, he was ahead of me in the field, so I was learning a lot. More recently, again, yeah, I work at TU Delft. There's a lot of very good, strong scholars who you can learn from, and I have my mentors there, and I'm very happy to consider them as mentors again. But I'm also interesting. I'm also very sort of like, I have a good attitude towards competition and benchmarking when it's healthy. So there are these people around the world that so not that you want to compete with them, but you see, oh, you did this, that's nice. Let me, I'll try to, like emulate what you're doing. And I want you to be also emulating what I'm doing, because that means that you're actually, that my work is valuable. So for instance, there is, Andrea that was here a few weeks, maybe a few months ago. He's one of my best colleagues, and he's also, someone that, I like to see what he does, right? Because I get inspired, and it's also very nice. So not just having mentors, but also having, people, peers, collaborators that you really want to work with, or you really want to emulate, learn something from them, and also hoping that they will like your work and that we can take inspiration from what you do.
Fantastic, so much fantastic advice there. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the respect between peers point, and learning in disguise. I think that was my favorite part, where you're like, you aren't even aware that they're your mentor and you're learning something all the time. That was a very unique point for our mentorship program. I'm going to hand over to Emma, who's going to ask another audience question that's very interesting.
Yeah, sure. So actually, I love the question from Linesha. Linesha, if you want to actually turn on your mic and ask it yourself, I think it's really valuable contribution to the discussion.
Thank you, Emma. My question was, in the foreseeable future, there's going to be a shift in terms of designations. And we see that there's a lot of merging, like pseudo careers. So my question was, what is the most looked for skill set in the computational and data space for water specialists in the foreseeable future? And will it be something pseudo career, like a project manager who has data analyst, or who has data analyst skills, or a data architect?
Yeah, thanks for your question, Linesha. I would say, if you talk about analytics, data-related skills, the most important skills are always the same, will never change. And it's really understanding the basics behind all of it. Basic statistics and causality, correlation. So if you have a grasp of that, and you have a solid knowledge of that, not just the grasp, that's more important, I would say, than being, like very skilled in Python, right? Because you can always have someone working for you that is super skilled in Python, and then he or she will present results to you that don't make any sense, and you can tell them, look, you see, what is the story, right? What is the story behind the data? So, and you can also do that. You can usually do that if you really have a deep understanding of what that really means. So again, it's less buzzwords, more, I would say, solid knowledge. So I think that still will always remain, you can think the same about math, right? There's nothing more important that you can do anything with math, and that's not something that is very old, right? So it's always there. And I would say statistic is also there. Of course, I would say it's very good that, in your early years, maybe in your career, you experience a lot of these days, like programming, get your hands dirty, do some programming, and also, look into cloud services, how they work, how they don't work, because maybe, this is going to be the normality 5-10 years from now, right? And people who had hands-on knowledge and hands-on practice on this will certainly be in a better position to then maybe work something related to this on a higher level, right, on a managerial level. And I see a lot now of interest in proper IT, even giants like IBM, in really, and really moving into the smart water sector as well. So this is something also that we need to be aware, right? I mean, once some of these giants make their move, it's really hard to stop them, right? So you might have had like an advantage by working, with water for 20, 30 years as a company, right? But then, like someone like IBM or Google comes in and say, okay, we're gonna do all the IoT, doesn't matter which one, right? If you build a platform, then this platform can be reutilized in so many different ways. And I know already that this is how it's evolving, right? I know of like big collaboration between, the usual, companies doing a lot of work for years in the field of engineering and water engineering, and then having very important partnerships with NVIDIA or with IBM and so on and so forth. At the same time, you see a lot of consultancies which have been doing this work for so long, and then instead of proposing their solutions to the clients now they say, okay, you know what, we're going to do everything on Azure or on Google Cloud or on. So I would say it's very valuable now to get familiar with these things, I would say. If I have to look too much into the future, I cannot tell you, but certainly the next 10 years is going to be like, you will see a lot of real transition towards proper IoT solutions for water and digital twins, analytics, and cloud services. So try to know as much as you can about that if you want to stay in this field, I would say. But this is more from smart water, but of course there is even much more, right? There is, I don't know what you're interested in particular, but in general, that's my view on this topic. I don't know if I answered your question.
That was a fantastic projection. Thank you so much, Riccardo. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but this was a very exciting interview. Thank you so much for your time. I've learned an incredible amount about smart water because I'm not really in the smart water field, sort of on the border. And so this was great. It's a learning session and a mentorship session. So thank you very much for that. We're just going to do a last few closing announcements before the end. There were a few questions unanswered in both the chat and on my list. And if you are available on LinkedIn, Riccardo, we'd love for you to answer those in the comments of our posts. We'll post the recording of the session in our LinkedIn group and add those unanswered questions to the bottom. And hopefully you can give us a little bit more insight in text.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I would love to do that.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for inviting me. It's very nice to see all these enthusiastic people about smart water. Great job.
Thanks, Riccardo. So just to wrap up, thank you all for joining us. We invite you to our next session, which will be on the 11th of May. And we'll be interviewing Hanneke Skiermans from RiSWP. So we look forward to that. And please also check out all the links that we've posted in the chat to our LinkedIn group for RiSWP, to the SWAN webpage, and to the webpage for the SWAN conference, which is later in May. So that's quite soon. But otherwise, thank you all for joining. And we look forward to hearing more from you in our LinkedIn group. And in the feedback survey that's been posted in the chat as well. Let us know what you thought and what we can improve on. Thanks, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. See you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.